This is why I say it's the ballot or the bullet. It's liberty or it's death. It's freedom for everybody or freedom for nobody.
Okay, so day 5 just finished, is the end of the first week. Today was pretty interesting. The COPA opened up by kind of discussing the chain of custody for the BlackNet documents that Craig submitted as some of his primary reliance documents. Now, BlackNet was pretty much a precursor to something like MetaNet that nChain is working on now. So that's why it's been submitted as one of their primary reliance documents, proving that Craig was working on something similar that required Bitcoin previous to his work on Bitcoin. They're trying to say that due to the chain of custody seen in the metadata that the document isn't reliable and shouldn't be used. Then it kind of went into them discussing the white paper and how Craig didn't have a pre-issued copy of the white paper. And there was a very specific way that the COPA lawyer said it. He phrased it very authoritatively, and it was just a little bit more distinct in just the tone of voice that he used. I could tell this is one of his primary arguments, and it's going to be one of his closing arguments. You could absolutely tell just by the way that he said it, and just the way that he used that term for the first time. He's like, you do not have a pre-issue copy of the Bitcoin white paper that is authentic, or something along those lines. I believe he may have used a different terminology that isn't forged. He keeps using the term forgery over and over again, so that's probably what it was. But that was pretty interesting. Just because it really, that revealed one of the closing arguments, I could just tell. And let's see, there was one interesting thing where they accused Craig of going off topic when he insisted on stating that he did have an authentic copy of a pre-issue copy of the white paper. They said that he was going off topic, but he was completely defending his point. It was on topic, and I thought it was weird that the lawyers for Craig's team didn't speak out at that point and insist that he was completely on topic while answering that question. So that just kind of slipped over someone's head there. Or perhaps I misread or misinterpreted that. The stream was terrible today. I'm sure anyone watching is... I heard other people complaining about it when I checked Twitter Spaces and stuff. The stream was just terrible. It was a really bad connection. I'm not sure if everyone was experiencing that, but I definitely did here. I have good internet here, so I'd imagine it was just something everyone was experiencing. There was one point where Craig was schooling the COPA lawyer on certain terminology that he was using, that he was misusing certain terms, like the difference between copying, cloning, and capturing. It's just interesting. He's just kind of... It shows the lawyers on COPA's side aren't technically inclined. I would expect them to be more well-versed in the subject matter. I'm curious to see what Craig's team does with Mr. Madden. I feel like just my thoughts about Mr. Madden is that it's going to come down to Madden versus Wright, not really COPA versus Wright, but I'll get into that a little more in a second here. The second half of the day, there was a lot of talk about Mr. Agerhansen and allegations that he had done several things that was actually mentioned yesterday that I should have mentioned. Accusations that he had, while he was working for nChain, maliciously obtained access to Craig's laptop and installed malware that gave him remote access to Craig's laptop and allowed him access to a lot of his private communications. There's a lot of bombshell accusations against Agerhansen, saying that I believe he said he roofied him, and that he'd done this to someone else as well and admitted to it in an interview, or I believe it was an interview with a newspaper. So that occupied a lot of the discussion near the end of the day. It seems like there's going to be some sort of criminal case pending on someone based on the testimony that Craig gave today. It's either going to be against Agerhansen or perhaps against Craig if he was being dishonest in his testimony. Which, I mean, it would be very foolish of Craig to do. So I would just, on that alone, presume that Craig probably is being honest. There's always the presumption of innocence until proven guilty, but yeah, that's probably something that is going to play out in court as well in the future, so I guess we'll see when that goes to court. But just generally, yeah, like my weekly thoughts, like my thoughts after 5 days of watching this trial is it's going to come down to Madden versus Wright. Like, I think really COPA is just relying on the Madden report, so if Craig can discredit the Madden report or enough of the Madden report that enough of his primary reliance documents can be seen as reliable in the eyes of the judge, then the judge will have a big enough pool of evidence from which he can say that he suspects Craig is Satoshi and make a verdict that way. Just kind of looking at the angle that's being played by COPA here, my concern is that he may well convince the judge that he's Satoshi, but COPA may have called enough of his evidence into question that the judge couldn't justify ruling in that way that Craig is Satoshi. He could fully believe that Craig is Satoshi and then say that it hasn't been definitively shown in court that he is Satoshi, so even though he has that suspicion, he can't rule in that in Craig's favor. I can see that happening. Because he is very convincing. I mean, if you're just anyone watching the trial, they know all of Craig's answers are very convincing, and it'd be odd if he gave succinct explanations for how to verify that they're correct if those explanations didn't actually work. Because, I mean, it would just be a matter of waiting a few more weeks for someone to verify your claims, and then they'd call you out on it in the court. So if he's making these claims, I'm going to presume that a lot of the stuff that he's saying about how things should work and where they come from, some of these are verifiable, some of them are not. The ones that are verifiable work in Craig's favor because they're probably correct. The ones that aren't verifiable, though, they're probably not going to be used by the judge at the end of this trial. They're probably going to be called into question to such an extent that if Craig can't really discredit Madden on the stand, that he may lose the case. I mean, I had a lot of confidence at the beginning of the week just because Craig's dunking on these guys who don't know the subject matter as well as he does. But that's not what's important here. What matters is really just the amount of evidence that the judge can act on at the end. Whether or not that pile of evidence in Craig's favor that COPA hasn't dirtied enough, if that pile of evidence is enough to weigh the scales in Craig's favor, then Craig will win. If not, then he won't. Unless there's some sort of bombshell. Like, I know people have been talking about the watermark. I discussed that yesterday as well, but I know he talked about steganography. People are considering the potential for there to be some sort of hidden watermark Easter egg in a copy of the Bitcoin white paper or something else that was perhaps put out there by Satoshi. I really find that hard to believe. Only because you could end the case already just by pointing it out. So, I mean, it's a little bit absurd to me that so many people are talking about it. I mean, if you just think about it for a few minutes, why wait until the end of the trial? That'd be outrageous. I feel like there would be consequences for that. Like, you've wasted so much resources in the courts. I mean, from your own legal team and the other side and the courts in general, like, there would be consequences if you waited till the very end to reveal that there's a watermark. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't buy into that narrative here. I know a lot of people want to believe that, but I don't get it. Over the weekend, I'm going to make a longer video, so if you guys have any suggestions of things I want to talk about, or you want me to talk about rather, leave a comment. I'll answer any questions you have, implement any suggestions you may make. So yeah, I'll make some better videos as the weeks go on. As the trial goes on, I'll make a more in-depth video outlining what's at stake in the trial and some other things. I've got a list made that I'm going to go through. So yeah, really looking forward to next week. Yeah, it's been really fun to watch so far.